Welcome back to another episode of Passing Me Podcast. My name is Dominic and I'm of course joined by my co-host Aaron. How you doing, bro?
I'm good, bro. How you been?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Back for the new year and obviously the first podcast of the new year. So excited to kick things off for 2025. Let's get straight into it with the biggest Premier League game of last weekend. Manchester United went to Anfield and managed to come away with a 2-2 draw. Something that, I mean, probably a lot of people probably weren't expecting coming into the game, especially considering Manchester United's form. But I wanted to kind of break down some of the things that we saw tactically in this game. So I'll start with probably the biggest improvement I saw in Manchester United's structure off the ball was definitely the defensive shape. I think that against Newcastle it was really exposed. We kind of went with a 5-2-3 with the front three looking to press Newcastle's back line, and I think it was really easy for them to get through into our midfield and play around there. Whereas I think at Anfield on Sunday it was more of a 5-4-1, and the midfielders were a lot better at blocking that space. You had Bruno and Ahmad dropping on either side to kind of compact that midfield area, and I thought that it really prevented Liverpool from having joy, especially with Curtis Jones. That's someone that I was kind of worried about before the game in that 10 position, kind of picking up pockets of space. But I thought the midfield did well to kind of deal with that, and I think it's a positive change for Amrim in terms of being able to recognise what didn't go well in the previous game and then being able to adapt coming into a big game. And yeah, what did you notice anything else about our shape, out of possession that you thought was good?
Yeah, so briefly, I did kind of see it looked a bit like a 5-4-1 at times out of possession, and left Hoyland up top by himself, and sort of had the wingers or the inside tens, I guess, sort of drop back a little bit and actually play, help with the overloads. Obviously the right hand side, you got Trent Alexander-Arnold, you got Mo Salah. On the other side, I think it was Robertson, and I think Gakpo to start off.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought they did really well. Our possession, they're working hard. Even in the midfield, the likes of Mainu and Ugarte, I thought they did really well too. And I think all in all, like it was I don't know. Obviously, we'll get onto it later. And at the end, you guys will definitely feel like you could have got a little bit more from it. But overall, I think it's definitely, I'd say, a win in Amram's books in terms of the process and the long term project. This is going to be like probably something you'll look back on in a few months and think like, yeah, this is sort of a marker or almost like a milestone of where you guys are at in terms of the whole project, I guess.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, obviously, for Manchester United fans, we're hoping that this can be kind of a turning point after the poor run of form. And yeah, hopefully that we can bounce back going into the future with our next games. I think one thing that I wanted to note that I was really impressed with was the centre-backs in this game, particularly the wide ones. I think Maguire was good as well, but I think De Ligt and Lisandro Martinez specifically did really well to kind of step into midfield and press up against Liverpool's forward line, because obviously when we're in our shape, we are light in midfield. Even if we're dropping back into a 5-4-1, when Liverpool have their front three and their eights pushing up as well, we can be light in midfield at times. So I think for the system, it's really important for the midfielders, for the centre backs, to step up and make those challenges, especially when we're pressing. And I think that's where the first goal came from. Lisandro stepping up, intercepting Trent's pass, and then obviously Bruno Fernandes gets on the ball, slips him in, and he rifles it into the top corner. Crazy finish.
Fantastic finish.
But yeah, what do you think about the profiles of the centre backs? Obviously, Martinez incredible on the ball, but I think off the ball and especially in those wide areas, he can be good at times. I don't think he was really exposed in the game against Liverpool, but it's definitely a concern. I think De Ligt as well, not so great on the ball compared to Martinez, but I think as a defender, he can still be good, and obviously he was sold for that Gakpo goal as well, for Liverpool's equaliser.
Brilliant finish, by the way. Shout out Gakpo.
Yeah, but what do you think of the profiles of the centre backs across the back three, including Maguire and that as well?
I don't know. I think it does leave a lot to be desired. I think starting off, I think De Ligt. And actually, I'll start with Maguire. I think Maguire is probably the only one of the three that I'd say the way he's playing and how he's profiled, it kind of suits him like to a T. I think De Ligt, he's had issues in wide areas previously. You know, I think back to the World Cup at Qatar, and I think it was it Senegal? I feel like it was Sarr. I feel like it was Ismail Sarr. I might be wrong, but if it was Ismail Sarr, Ismail Sarr was like taking him for a ride the whole game. And you know he's had sort of, this is sort of not really his profile. I feel like he's probably a little bit more similar to Maguire and probably a bit better profiled, you know, this with the way Maguire has been so far. But I don't think he's better than Maguire, and I don't think he's better on the ball either than Maguire. So I feel like that's kind of a dilemma, you know, because you've got him in on decent wages, and you know you'd expect him to start. But I don't know. I feel like in your ideal team, maybe come summer, if you guys recruit some more defenders, I don't think he'd be in the ideal starting 11 personally.
Yeah. No.
What do you think?
I mean, I agree, to be honest. I think I agree with you that I think De Ligt profile is very similarly to Maguire, and I think the reason Maguire is playing centre back over De Ligt is because of his passing range and his ability to switch the ball to the wide areas. I think that's really important for the middle centre back to do in this system, and Maguire is just more consistent with those switches. I think that's something that De Ligt lacks. I think kind of with the way the squad's built, I think that Lenny Yoro is supposed to be that guy to kind of come in and overtake De Ligt in the long term. I mean, we saw him obviously come off the bench in this game, make a great sliding tackle on Darwin Núñez in the dying moments of the game. And I think from the cameos and small parts in games that we've seen with Lenny Yoro, he's looked very good. And I think obviously Amram is trying to ease him in because he's just come back from an injury and he's still a very young player. He's only 19. So I think long term, Lenny Yoro is definitely going to be that right centre back. I think you mentioned in terms of recruiting centre backs in the summer, I think we're probably going to be in the market for a left centre back, more so than a right side centre back. So I want to give Lisandro Martinez that competition and probably potentially even start over him. Because I mean, if Martinez goes down injured, and he's someone that has been injury prone in the past, like we don't have another left-footed centre back. The only other player who's left-footed that could play there is Luke Shaw, and he's got his own injury worries. So, yeah, I think that's definitely a position that we should look to recruit in the summer. But I wanted to move on to the midfield because I thought that United's midfield, that double pivot, was very impressive in the game against Liverpool. I think that, I mean, they were massively important to the result. I think Ugarte, I think we got to give Ugarte some flowers, man.
For sure.
I think coming in, obviously came in for a big fee, and it was a lot of, I don't know, there was a lot of kind of criticism around the transfer from United fans, especially considering his year at PSG didn't go the greatest. But I think in this system, when he can play in a double pivot, the role suits him really well. I think especially because he's someone that likes to almost free roam and hunt the ball and look for duels and challenges. And I think when you're working in a double pivot, I think Mainu is someone that can dovetail with that. I think Mainu has enough defensive awareness to kind of read the situation. When Ugarte is going forward, he knows to be back and cover in case Ugarte doesn't win the duel. And I think when he was playing, for example, at PSG in the single pivot at the base of the midfield, there's no one really to cover for him in that position. If he goes wandering, look for a duel, and he loses it, then the other team is straight at the back line. And I think it was the game against Newcastle, or it might have been a game against AC Milan.
I think it was Milan.
Yeah, game against AC Milan, where he got taken for a ride that whole game. I can't lie, it was a poor performance. And then from then on, I don't think he started another Champions League game for PSG that season.
Yeah.
So he definitely wasn't Luis Enrique's cup of tea, but I mean, Ruben Amorim has worked with him before, and I think that that definitely plays a part into why he's been so good so far under Amorim. I think as well he's even shown a bit in possession. He's not the most expansive passer or anything like that, but he has some nice moments where he can wriggle out of pressure, dribble over short distances, and he's someone that I like how he keeps the ball ticking and keeps it moving quite quickly. 1 or 2 touches, 3 maximum, and he's giving the ball off to someone else. He doesn't really try to overplay it. And yeah, I think that suits Man United, especially when we're in these kind of big games like this. Mainu as well, I think this was probably his best game under Amorim. I think, yeah, definitely up there. I think the Newcastle performance obviously came off the bench, but I think he was quite bright in that game. And I think against Liverpool, he really built on that as probably his best game. Both Ugarte and Mainu topped the tackling charts with 4 challenges completed in the game, most of any player on the pitch. And yeah, I think they were really good. They were all action. And yeah, and they impressed me. I think that's probably going to be the double pivot going forward for us.
I think one thing about Ugarte that kind of surprised me is that for the whole reputation he's had of, being sort of a player who's bad on the ball or like shaky or whatever, it felt like in this game, a lot of the time he was really decisive with his actions. Like there's a lot of times, for example, where it was from a set piece or from a corner and he's the last guy back, and then the ball get cleared and it'll be like Salah and like maybe Jota or someone hunting him down, and it won't be like just a blasted clearance, but it'll be like a clearance with a bit of, an idea about where he's trying to put the pass, and it would always get back to United player, and then they get back on the attack. I'm not sure if for the final chance of the game it was him or someone else, but those type of passes where the ball's in the air and then he has to clear it, he's sort of getting it right. Like there's other players who don't have that same reputation of being sort of bad on the ball, but in that scenario they'd sort of think, oh, should I go back to the keeper, should I take a touch, what should I do? But he's sort of decisive and sort of like straight to the point with it.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate that in the game. I can't lie. I thought it was really good. I can't lie.
Yeah, no, 100%. I just want to touch on one thing as well, because after the game, Bruno Fernandes and Ruben Amorim came out and they said they were frustrated at the result, considering the performance in this game was so good, and in other games like against Wolves, for example, why can't we play at this level? And I actually think it has a lot to do with that midfield pivot. I think that the Ugarte and Mainu partnership specifically is very suited to these big games, particularly big away games where Man United are not their onus is not on them to kind of come out and dominate the game. I think because of the profile of both players, as we mentioned, obviously they're very good in duels. They're quite mobile. They can get around the pitch. Ugarte probably more so than Mainu, but Mainu does enough to kind of be a net positive in these games. And I think on the ball as well, because they're both quite press resistant and they keep it ticking. They play simple passes, but they play the right passes, kind of as you mentioned. And I think in big games like this, especially when you're away from home, that is really important to have in the midfield, to kind of being able to evade pressure and keep the ball and then move it forward and be able to play. Whereas I think against smaller teams, when we've had Ugarte and Mainu, I think some of the problems that we've had is actually breaking down the low blocks when teams sit back against us. And, Ugarte is not, even though he's shown probably more on the ball than we expected, he's still not somebody that is like a deep line playmaker or something that's going to be dictating the tempo and creating chances. And Mainu as well is someone that is still quite a safe passer. I think sometimes he has moments in his locker where he pulls out a pass and you're like, oh wow, like where did that come from? But I think that's something that in the future I definitely want to see more from him, being kind of more authoritative with his passing, really trying to stamp his mark on the game from a creative aspect. And I think in terms of when we're playing against the smaller opposition, teams that are more happy to sit in a low block, I think if we have someone in the team that from deep who is more progressive and more creative with the passing, I think that will really help us out. So but let's obviously talk about Liverpool. Touch on their kind of performance. What did you see in that game from them?
I can't lie. The first half, I didn't think they were too bad. I thought on the ball, especially, I thought they were really I thought they done well in sort of dominating the game, but there wasn't that sort of final bit to it. Like normally the Liverpool, they break down teams, they really get at them, they sort of keep them pending for most of the game. And I can't lie, it felt like United, it's probably partially in like due to United having a good performance as a team, but I think Liverpool didn't really get that same sort of joy. Like they were getting sort of half chances or arriving in the final third in situations where it's like they might make something from it, but it doesn't really feel like it's favoured for Liverpool. It felt like it's more like a situation that United would be okay with dealing with. Yeah. And, Salah was quiet this game. And that's kind of, for me, kind of the reason was that it didn't really feel like a lot of the time when Salah got on the ball, it was in ideal situations for him to sort of do his thing. It really felt like it was sort of like he's there, maybe with 2 United defenders around, and then the rest of the team are still sort of arriving, sort of getting there, and they're not really there yet. And overall, I think in the first half, they had a few sort of half chances, but it was nothing really concrete. Like, you wouldn't say they deserved to win. But then when you go into the second half, I think that's when things start to flip a little bit. Obviously, after go 1-0 down, Cody Gakpo and mate. I thought McAllister was great today, by the way.
Yeah.
But he plays a pass to Gakpo. Gakpo, amazing chop inside, top corner. I love Gakpo and I'm a big fan. But it really didn't feel like, other than that, they really sort of deserved to win this game, which is a bit surprising to say, especially at home. But I think then second half, Trent, I don't know, man. I don't know, man. I can't lie, because that I rewatched the game and that performance to me is crazy. Like, anything that could go wrong was go wrong. He gave the ball away. He's lazy defending. He's not tracking back enough. He's missing intercept. Like, anything you can think of that can go wrong was going wrong. And then you see Van Dijk as well, like
losing his head, man.
I couldn't believe it. I missed some of it in real time, but when I rewatched it, it was insane. Like, his head was gone. Like, the amount of times I see him screaming Trent, like, oh my gosh. But nah, honestly, it was I don't know. It really did feel like something you did mention before as well. It really did feel like they're kind of fatigued. I think. I think definitely with the midfield. When you look at Curtis Jones, for example, like, someone else has said it before, like, barely even noticed he was really playing.
Yeah, he was non-existent.
And he was playing in a number 10 this game, and I don't know. For me, I don't really think that's his best usage anyway. But still, like, there's guys like Harvey Elliott who's now being linked away because he's not getting any minutes. He was on the bench. I feel like you can still sort of be competitive without playing the same players every game, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. No, 100%. I think, as you mentioned, the fatigue, I think, obviously, you look at Gravenberch and McAllister, how important they've been to this Liverpool team. They've started so many games already this season. And obviously, I think, to be fair, you mentioned McAllister is good. I think Gravenberch was really good as well. I think Liverpool did well, particularly in the first half, to kind of get in between United's midfield and defensive line. And I think you saw a couple times where McAllister burst through into space, Gravenberch turned into space, and they were in between the lines. But yeah, as you mentioned, they couldn't really create anything clear cut from that. And I think in the second half, kind of when the game became a bit more end to end, I really felt like Liverpool were kind of losing that battle, which is not really something that you would associate with Liverpool. Obviously, the high intensity. I know this is something you maybe more associate with Klopp football, but I mean, it's still the same players. You know what I mean? That are used to these sort of games. So it was definitely surprising for me. I think. On the Trent performance, I think I don't know. I think it's funny to me how kind of everybody is blowing up the way he played. Like, I don't know. Trent, we've known Trent is not a great defender. Like, he's never really been, like, that's never really been his standard attribute. You know, I can think back to like a game 2 seasons ago against Arsenal at the Emirates where Martinelli skinned him. Like, it was embarrassing. And like, Trent has had bad defensive games, but I think for me the more striking thing was going forward. There was nothing from him. That's something that, you know, every game, you know, even if the defensive side is going to be questionable, you know, going forward he's going to have something for you. He's going to be able to create a chance out of nothing with a ball down the line or into the box or something like that. And I really thought that was missing for Liverpool in this game. But yeah, are there any other like individual performances you wanna highlight that stood out to you?
None specifically for me.
Nah, fair enough. I don't know. Anybody else that we didn't really shout out? I think we should talk about Højlund actually. To be honest, it's been a talking point. Rasmus Højlund, man. Obviously, he had that chance in the first half.
Yeah, has to do better, I think.
Martinez played him through, and yeah, man. I think when he was running through on goal, you just kind of knew he wasn't gonna score. Like, he didn't shoot that with any real sort of conviction, anything like that. And with Højlund, it's a tough one because I do like the player. Like, I like the tools he has. I think physically, he's like, you know, he's fast, he's tall, he's strong. I think he's a good finisher when he shoots, but that's the problem. He doesn't shoot nearly enough. And I think in his first season, I was someone who said that, like, you know, the team's got to create more for him. He has to get on the end of more chances, but the team have to look for him more. But I think now, to be honest, I've kind of gone the other way. I think Højlund has to do more in terms of asserting himself in the game. I think he has to do better in terms of creating shots for himself, creating separation in order to take shots. I think he has to do more in terms of getting on the end of chances. There was that one chance in the first half where Bruno Fernandes played the ball and Højlund ran far post instead of running front post. If he runs front post, he has a tap in there.
Yeah.
And I think, just things like that, movement, in order to get more shots on goal, because he is a good finisher when he takes shots. And I think, he just has to be more assertive with that, more channel runs as well. And I know, like, I guess it can be, like, discouraging when he's doing all that and he's not getting the ball, but bro, being a striker is a lonely position, man. Sometimes you can be making runs all day and you might not get the ball until right at the end of the game. But at the end of the game, you have to finish that chance, because that could be the chance that can win your team the game.
Yep.
So you have to keep going. And I think, I don't know, I think Højlund, I back him to put it together, but I think it's kind of an unfortunate situation because he's still very young, and obviously Man United paid a lot of money for him, so the expectation for him is to deliver. But I think with the situation that he's in right now, like where he is right now and where the club is right now, I think we'd really benefit from like a more senior striker, a more proven goal scorer and then Højlund kind of rotate with him and come in for some games, come out for some games, and not be the starting number 9 week in, week out. But yeah, what do you think of Højlund?
I don't know, man. I was saying it during and after the game. I feel like you might. I don't think you will, but I feel like at this point you might have to consider cutting ties. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, I think you might have to cut your losses and sell, because I don't know. I was a fan of him from when I heard you guys were linked. I went back and watched some games from Atalanta, and I was really impressed by him. He's a really, really like bright talent. But I feel like, obviously, it's a harsh criticism to have on someone at Man United. But I feel like in the time he's been at the club, I don't think he's really improved from when he joined. I feel like it's obviously harsh because you can't really expect him to improve in the situation that he's in. Do you know what I'm saying? The environment it's not like he's underperforming. Like, no one's really had that sort of chance to properly improve as a player. But I don't know, man. For 72 million, like, you want a bit more production. And I feel like one of the things that I highlighted when I was watching him before he joined you guys was that he doesn't use his body as well as he should. But he has the right build, he has the right frame for it, but doesn't use his body as well as he should, and it doesn't feel like he can play as a number 9 or as a lone striker. It feels like he has to play off someone, kind of similar to like Lautaro Martinez, for example, who he plays alongside a bigger striker and sort of has that freedom to roam and find himself on the ball and sort of drive at the defenders rather than being the guy who has to tussle with the defenders. Like in this game, he was up against, was it Konate and Van Dijk? Yeah, like up against those two. Like I would never see him winning that battle. A lot of strikers won't win that battle, but specifically him, like, it didn't really fill me with any confidence. And for the way that Amorim likes to play, you've already seen Amorim plays with the 3-4-2-1 type of formation. Like, for me, it doesn't feel like Højlund for at least the next few years, unless he rapidly develops at this point. I don't think he's going to be ready to play that lone 9. I feel like potentially you could get a bit more out of him if you're doing like you sign inside forwards who he can sort of bounce the ball off a bit more and play a bit closer and link up with better. But for me, I don't think it's worth it personally to do that when you can just sign strikers who will be better at that. Like, for example, I think one that I mentioned before to one of my friends was Liam Delap. I don't think he'd go to United, but I do think like
that's the sort of striker.
Yeah, do you see what I mean? And he was signed for 20 million. Now in summer, he'll probably leave Ipswich and go somewhere else for like 50 million, maybe 60 at the max. But like that type of striker, or if you look at like a Osimhen, a more senior striker, as you mentioned, like I feel like those sort of players would be better suited to Amram's style. And I feel like there's less sort of development that you need to do for those players compared to Højlund, who obviously if you do stick with him and develop him, you will get something. But I feel like it's less work to then go and buy another striker who's more suited to that number 9 role. So I don't know. I like the player, but I don't know. I don't think this is really the fit for him. I think I had more faith, funnily enough, when you had Ten Hag. I probably had a bit more faith in him because I thought at that point there's more chance of the system being a bit more suited to him. But now I don't really know if the system is suited to him anymore.
No, fair enough. And I mean, other Man United fans have kind of expressed the same frustrations that you have about Højlund. I can't really blame them because, I mean, I'm not going to act like I'm not seeing the same thing that we're all seeing. Do you know what I mean? He can be very underwhelming at times, but I still think that there's a chance there's something in there. I think he might need that same plan that Conte had Lukaku on, bro, when he was at Inter, turn him into one of the best strikers, lone strikers, hold up play, all that in the world. But let's move on to the Arsenal versus Newcastle game. Obviously in the Carabao Cup, Newcastle run out 2-0 winners at the Emirates in the first leg. What did you make of this Newcastle performance? Because I mean, I thought, they really came to the Emirates to play like on the front foot, and it was quite aggressive in their approach. So, what did you make of their performance?
I think you could only start in one place, man. That gunman, Alexander Isak, man. Wow. What a striker, man. I think at this point we have to be considering like the level, because I can't lie, he was getting sort of rubbed out of a lot of conversations, like in terms of strikers in the Premier League. Like he wasn't. I was seeing him sort of getting pushed to the back a bit, maybe because of his availability, but still last season he scored like 21, I think. In like 20 something games. Like, I don't know, man. Like he's really lighting it up now, man, and he's a crazy striker. I think all around, like, he just kind of has everything. Like the one thing I like about him the most is the technical sort of mastery about him. Like everything he does, it feels like, you know when people say like to practice something, you have to do your 10,000 hours in training. It feels like he's done his 10,000 hours, and I love it, man. Like everything, the touch, the passing. Like in that game, he had one really nice play where he sort of received it back to goal, stepped out, and then played it through the gap, like through
he was like
Lewis Skelly, through between Lewis Skelly and Gabriel, perfect pass. Like everything, like the finishes, all of it. Like, I don't know, man. He's amazing, and you know, this game was kind of. Both of the goals technically came from him. You know, the first one gives Odegaard a shrug. You know, you have to be strong in that situation, and then slots it past the keeper, you know, into the roof of the net. And then the second one, you know, he's not really favoured in that situation either. Like he's sort of, it's sort of like, I think 2 defenders around him, maybe 3. He just shifts it, finds space for the shot, gets the shot off. You make your own luck, and then obviously Gordon, you know, the mindset he has as a forward, you know, lurking at the back post, gets onto it, slots it 2-0. Like, I don't know. I feel like this is really like his sort of explosion at this point is really sort of carrying Newcastle a bit in terms of the project that people thought they were going to be when they hit the Champions League group stages. Was it last season? I think they made it to the Champions League group stage. Like the season before that, when they qualified for Champions League, everyone was thinking, this Newcastle project is going to go bang, like this is really the one. And then they sort of had a bit of a come down off that, but I feel like now his new explosion, this sort of showing the level he's at, you know, if they could just get a few more pieces, like this is a serious team, you know, I can't lie. But on the game specifically, I would point out I thought they were really disciplined, you know. I think it was Bruno Guimaraes was suspended for this game. And they were really, really disciplined about him. You know, Joe Linton, I think Tonali and Willock as the midfield 3. And then they ended up doing Jacob Murphy, who's been in good form this season. He was playing almost like a right wing back out of possession. And Livramento would tuck in, and it was like a 5-4-1. And I can't lie, I was impressed, man. I can't lie. Like, they were really disciplined, you know. Obviously, Arsenal didn't have a lot of their players, such as like Saka, you know. But still, like, it really felt like, you know, this is a really disciplined performance. And, you know, Emirates is still a tough place to go at the end of the day. We've seen teams go to Emirates and lose, regardless of Arsenal's form. And, yeah, man, like, I can't lie. You have to give a shout out to Eddie Howe, because this team is, like, something you would have never imagined. Like, it's a team where you really feel like...
They're in every game.
Yeah, like, you don't really ever feel like, you know... Even without Bruno Guimaraes, who's arguably their best player, like you don't really feel like this is a game you can just stroll. Like you really feel like you have to work for a goal. And obviously Arsenal didn't get a single goal, so do you see what I mean? Like it really does feel like a tough place. You know, St. James Park feels like a tough place to go, but even now when you're playing at home, when they come to you, it still feels like
a tough place for you to go.
Do you see what I mean? Well, what did you think about this game in particular?
I mean, I'm kind of echoing what you said. I was really impressed with Newcastle's approach. I thought, particularly in the first half, their pressing, they went man to man, and they were all over Arsenal in that first half, particularly on that right side. Livramento was pushing so high, and Hall as well. At left back, I thought the fullbacks were really important to kind of shutting down Arsenal's shutting down Arsenal's build-up play, and I thought they did quite well out of possession to kind of stifle Arsenal's playing. I mean, we can talk about Arsenal's lack of creativity and whatnot, or lack of threat on the transition later on. But I thought Newcastle's performance was, as you said, really disciplined, and I think they stuck to the task well. I think Newcastle are probably one of the only teams in the league that can actually match Arsenal in terms of physicality. You look at that midfield that they put out, even without Bruno Guimaraes, they've still got Tonali, Joelinton, and Joe Willock. Do you know what I mean? That's a midfield that runs through most midfields in the league. Do you know what I mean? I think Arsenal's midfield is up there, and you probably say Aston Villa's of Onana, Morgan Rogers, and John McGinn maybe as another midfield that is on that level physically. But I think with the personnel that Newcastle have, it really suits the way that Eddie Howe is trying to play with this team, and I think that's the reason why they can kind of try and be on the front foot wherever they go, whether it's at home or away. Obviously, you mentioned the front three. You touched on Jacob Murphy. I think he's been decent the last couple of months. I still do think that he's someone that Newcastle definitely need to look to upgrade, and I think when they do get a right winger in, if they can keep hold of Isak, which is looking like a difficult task at the moment, because I mean he's a man in demand, but if they can keep hold of Isak, a front three of Isak, Gordon, and a right winger, I don't know who they could go out and get, but somebody that is Champions League quality, that's looking scary, man. Like I think that's a real threat. But let's touch on Arsenal and their performance. Obviously, Arsenal's season so far, I mean, it's been a disappointment if we're gonna put it bluntly. Obviously, they're off the pace in the title race at the moment. Kind of half out of the Carabao Cup. They've got a 2-0 deficit to overturn at St James's Park, which is not going to be easy. The Champions League, we kind of know Arsenal's history in the Champions League, and they've got a tough FA Cup tie coming up on the weekend. So, I don't know. It's been a disappointing season for Arsenal, and I think it all kind of culminated in this game. I feel like going forward, let me start actually defensively, because I think that's what Arsenal still kind of maintain their level. I feel like defensively even though they conceded 2 goals, I thought they were quite good. I think they did well to actually press Newcastle and stop them from playing out when they tried to have the ball. I think there were a couple of times where they trapped Newcastle's fullbacks kind of in the corner of the pitch, and they did well to stop them from progressing the ball. But the thing with Arsenal, as we've kind of been saying all season, is going forward that they're lacking that sort of spark, that sort of creativity. They did have a few chances. Martinelli 1-on-1 in the first half.
I don't know about that, dude, man.
Really? I feel like you should do better there, bro.
And that's the thing, I think, that kind of marks the whole recruitment thing with their left wing situations, that other players, the one in a lot of demand right now, Omar Marmoush, for example, I'm thinking about Ademola Lookman. Like, as soon as I seen him on that chance, I'm thinking, there's other left wingers who I know they're taking this and they're slotting it bottom corner.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And Martinelli, like, I thought that's a chance that he needs to be putting away. Especially, I think score was still 0-0 at that time, right? Yeah. And he kind of cannons it off the post. In the second half, Havertz has that chance that like kind of comes off his shoulder. Definitely need to be putting that away. And yeah, Arsenal's creativity, I think their kind of issue, I think it comes down to 2 things. I think one is probably Arteta's kind of commitment to control and the way that he sets up his team. I think he really prioritizes rest defense and making sure that if Arsenal lose the ball, they're not going to get hit on the counter-attack and they're not going to concede chances that way. But I feel like when the team is suffering an attack this much, or not even, because it's not even in every game, I feel like it's only in certain games where they come unstuck like this. I feel like in games like this, he needs to kind of free up the structure a bit more and let players have more freedom to kind of flood forward and create chances. And then I think as well, obviously, the second kind of issue is the personnel. I've seen a lot of people getting onto Ødegaard in recent weeks. I was kind of someone that was a Ødegaard defender. At the beginning of this season, start of the season, especially when he was injured, I was really saying how Arsenal were missing him. But I can't lie, the last couple of weeks, especially since Saka's been out, I'm kind of hearing what that side of the Arsenal fan base are saying. I feel like Ødegaard I think he's a great player. I think he's obviously technically sound, works really hard for the team, has nice little cute moments and passes. But I feel like as a actual final third, like creative threat. I feel like he doesn't provide too much on a consistent enough basis for him to be that guy for Arsenal. Do you know what I mean? Especially when Saka's not in the team and all the onus is then on him to create. I don't know if he provides enough creative threat consistently. What do you think?
I don't know, man. I like Odegaard. I think he's a good player. I think it's just there needs to be a bit of nuance with him, you know. I feel like he's great, but I think at the same time, there's obvious limitations he has. You know, for example, he's not good at carrying the ball. We've seen a lot of times...
Over long distances.
Yeah, like we've seen a lot of times where Arsenal are on the counter-attack and he's driving, but then he can't really burst away from the defender and continue that transition. So he sort of just turns around, you know, gets it back onto his left foot and then looks up, see what's available. By that point, not much is available because the defense will have already fallen back. So then he has to just lay it off to someone close to him. But like you compare that to, obviously it's a high bar, but Kevin De Bruyne, you know, you compare it to him, and that's the standard that, you know, at Man City, they're the team that Arsenal have been competing with for a lot of the time. Even if you want to look at Liverpool, for example, Liverpool's main creator is Salah. Salah thrives on the counter-attack. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is the standard that we're talking about. Even if you're not talking about Salah, like, if you look at Liverpool have players like Diaz, Gakpo, even Szoboszlai. Like, these players can...
strong runners with the ball.
Yeah, they can take the ball over long distances. You know, these obvious limitations, it's not like you can ignore them. But I don't think it makes Odegaard, like, necessarily a bad player or someone who has to get replaced. I feel like you just sort of have to play with that, because at the same time, all of Odegaard's strengths, like, for example, you know, his technical ability is off the charts, you know. The way you can pass the ball as well. Like, I feel like all these things, if you can just pair him with someone who sort of counteracts all of that, then I feel like it sort of balances out, and I feel like you get a good player and you get a good system. I think one of the biggest, like, issues with Arsenal right now is that they had the opportunity to do this and they signed Mourinho to play. Like, I don't know, man. I feel like the opportunity was there to sort of... Declan Rice, in my opinion, as a number 6, he's the best off-ball number 6 in the world. Like, he's going to screen everything. He's going to pick up everything. He's going to win those duels. So you don't even really need to pair him with anyone. So I feel like having him as the main number 6 and an Odegaard as sort of the deeper sort of 8 to help with them, I feel like that, and then having an actual pure final third creator, that would have been like the way to go. But they went with Mourinho. They went with another Calafiori. They went with like they didn't go for enough attacking firepower, and I feel like now it's sort of hurting them when you're going into these games, and like you're getting the half chance, like you're getting the Martinelli one, which he should probably do better with, and the Havertz one, which he should definitely do better with. But then at the same point, I then look at the manager, because it's like, this is the team that you've assembled. You know, this is their level. You can't take them above their level. Like, there's only like Havertz definitely went above his level, and he was going crazy last season in the title running. But like, you can't expect that from him every single week, because that's just not the level of player he is. That's the level of like guys like Haaland, for example, and obviously probably a bad example at the moment because Haaland's not been good recently. But like in general, like that's the level of player we're talking about. You know, we're talking about like Isak. These are the caliber of players that I feel like Arsenal should have been going for, and the fact they didn't, now they're sort of left to deal with what they have now, and it's sort of like a lackluster attack. And I think after the game, Theo Walcott mentioned it, and he said like, now Arsenal have sort of gone away from that free-flowing football that, like, you know, Wenger used to sort of bring to Arsenal, that Arsenal were known for. And now it's like they're getting excited for corners and set pieces and things like that. Like
Nicolas Jova getting murals. And
like that's not what Arsenal is. Do you know what I mean? That's not what they've been built on, I guess. So I don't know, man. I feel like there's only so much. Like, I understand obviously Odegaard's performances have been bad, but like I feel like there's only so much you can put on an individual player and rather look at the whole team, because it shouldn't take Saka being injured for the whole team to collapse. Like that. That's not really. That shouldn't be a thing.
No, 100%. Let's move on to our second segment of today's episode. So we decided to come up with a list of players that we wanna 5 players to watch for 2025. Players that we think you guys need to invest your stocks in for this year. So I'm gonna let you start, Aaron. Who's the first player that you've got on this list?
First player on this list, you know, got to keep it close to home. So I'm gonna start with my boy, Man City's very own. Probably not for much longer, but Man City's very own James McAtee. Obviously had a really bright cameo the other day against Leicester. I don't know. I feel like with McAtee, you kind of have to start from the start. It's a player that you have to have been around for to really know. So McAtee, for me, I thought back in the class of McAtee, Delap, Lavia, Palmer, Tommy Doyle, Taylor Harwood-Bellis, I thought he was the best player for sure. Like, I didn't think it was much of a debate. Like, I'm pretty sure he won the Player of the Season and the Golden Boot that year in the PL2, so like the under 21s?
Yeah.
21s, yeah. Premier League, like sort of under 21s league. And back then, like this is like what 2021. I think he makes his debut in the Premier League against Everton. You know, he plays he plays a Champions League game against Sporting, and I don't know. It felt like, you know, this is really the guy. Like, we were getting bids from Brighton that'll get rejected. We're getting bids from Ajax getting rejected. Like, they really felt like, you know, just give him time and this is the guy. And he really has that sort of, obviously Foden has been held as like, you know, Man City's like academy crown jewel type of thing. You know, David Silva comparisons, all that stuff. But stylistically, it really feels like McAtee is more of that David Silva mold. And it feels like he's really like more of like, he just got that sort of class about him, like that elegance on the ball, the playmaking, the tight spaces. Like he just really feels like, if you watch David Silva, he's literally just David Silva. Like that's what he really feels like. And I don't know. He then ended up going on loan to Sheffield United. Had a bit of a rough start, but then in the Championship was practically, I'd say, arguably their best player. And you know, they ended up getting promoted. After that, then he goes on loan for a second season, and it's kind of just hell because Sheffield are not good enough to be in the Premier League. Do you know what I mean? He spends most of the time out on the right wing by himself. He had a really good performance, I remember, against Liverpool. You know, practically did everything by himself that game. And I don't know, it's just really like you sense him sort of gaining a bit of that maturity and sort of the development that I'd say, I wouldn't say he didn't really necessarily need it in my opinion, but it's definitely valuable to have, and it just makes him a better player of, you know, being in them relegation battles, you know, every week when you're going out there and giving your all and still losing the game mentally as well. That's something that, you know, a lot of people don't really think about from the outside looking in, but for footballers, you know, being in a relegation battle is not just about being worse than other teams. Like you're training every week, you're training every day, you know, you're going out there, you're traveling long distances to matches, you go to the match and then you lose 3-0. Like mentally that's taxing. Do you know what I mean? And a lot of that determination to still go again, like imagine you're getting injured as well, like all these things, like to still go again and again and again, like that's mentally a key stage of development that people don't really account for, or that fans don't really account for. And I feel like he definitely, you know, he definitely did take that big step, and he's also bulked up a little bit. Like he was a bit skinnier before, now he's a bit more rigid. You know, he's not really that small. I've said David Silva comparison, he's like 6 foot. Like he's really sort of, he's got a bit more of that steel about him and that sort of determination, resilience. And then, you know, coming into this season, the preseason, he done well in preseason. Didn't really see the pitch ever since. Like he played, I think he started maybe 1 or 2 games until like October. And then he barely saw the pitch ever again. Like in the last, during our losing run, he's probably, I think, seen 20 minutes in 2 months.
Yeah.
And then, like it's ridiculous, to be honest, because, you know, if anyone's supposed to be that player who can deal with a losing run, it would be the guy who was in a relegation battle. Do you know what I mean? But nah, he honestly hadn't seen the pitch. He finally did get a cameo, you know, against Leicester, and he sort of changed the game for us. Came on instantly, first touch, sidesteps the defender, plays the ball, and then we end up scoring off it. Like, I don't know. This is, for me, even going back to England under 21s, one of the comparisons I love to make is with Morgan Rogers. Morgan Rogers is lighting up the Prem right now. But when they play together for the under 21s for England, McAtee's always the best player, like by far the best player on the team. And they're on the pitch together. They're there with McAtee. Bino Gittins is there from time to time. Alex Scott is there. Hayden Hackney's there from time to time. You know, all the players you could... Who's the other one? Jonathan Rowe's there from time to time. Like, all these players who are really, like, you hear about them going around Europe and doing this and that. But McAtee's sort of still kept a bit more in the darkness because he doesn't really play. I feel like he is definitely going to force a move in January. Not sure if he's going to be allowed to leave because the situation with City's injuries and all this stuff. But, you know, definitely end of season. I don't think I'd see him staying here unless something crazy changes between now and then. But yeah, in 2025 in general, like I'll definitely be looking at him as a player in terms of one to watch because I don't know. I think all he's really needed is the quality to to be allowed to show. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You look at Delap now, who's lighting up in the Prem. Palmer, obviously, who's in the same team as him, who's lighting him up in the Prem. Rogers lighting up in the Prem. Like, all of these guys are sort of doing their thing. Bino Gittins is doing it in Champions League. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is sort of, I think now he just sort of needs the actual opportunity. And now you're getting a lot of links with like Forest, West Ham, Fulham, Dortmund, Leipzig. Like, these are the type of teams that he can go to and thrive at. So I'd say for 2025, you know, I have no doubts. Like, I'm full confident in his abilities. Like, I have no doubts. I think for 2025, he's one to invest your stocks in, man, because I think he's really gonna be on a don't want to say revenge tour, but like he's really gonna have something to prove this year for sure.
Nah, shout out McAtee, man. We'll see how he gets on this year. My pick for a player to watch in 2025, I've gone with Desiree Doué at PSG. Some of you may know who he is already, but he signed for PSG last summer from Rennes, and for me, I think the first thing that kind of stands out about Doué is his flair and his kind of the way he looks on the ball, his technical ability, the way he can dribble, he can beat players. And this is someone who his best position is probably number 10. He can play off either wing. But if you go back and look at his games at Rennes, he was actually playing in the double pivot at times as like a deep midfielder, picking up the ball in the first phase and the second phase and progressing play. And I think that really speaks to his IQ, the fact that he can be so versatile in terms of in a position and within a system. And I think that's something that's really rare in today's game amongst players, especially for someone to be able to play in a double pivot and then on the wing. Do you know what I mean?
That's
I think
crazy.
That's not something that you see every day. And I think the way that he does it as well, I think he's quite inventive. And I think that's something that is particularly in Liga very important, because when you're playing at PSG, I mean, 99% of the teams you're coming up against are going to be playing in a low block, and I'd say probably more so than PSG in Liga, probably more so than any other team in Europe's top 5 leagues. Of course, like sort of City, Liverpool, Arsenal come up against low blocks in the Premier League, but when they come up against other big teams, you know, those are big head-to-head games. Teams are going for it, but I think PSG, for majority of their games, they're having to break down low blocks. And they have a lot of possession of the ball, and they're really trying to create chances. And I think Doué is someone that, with his ability, with his creativity, and the way he can be inventive and create scenarios really out of nothing, I think he's someone that is really valuable when trying to break down low blocks. I think in 2025, I expect him to play a bit more for PSG in the second half of the season. I think the first half of the season, he kind of was underutilized by Luis Enrique. Maybe he was struggling to adapt to a new club. But I think towards November, December, he started playing more. And I think with PSG's links to Kvaratskhelia, I don't know what that could mean for Doué. But if he is to move to a different club, I feel like that could be a really big coup for whatever team gets their hands on him, because this is someone who is versatile, as I mentioned, and someone who has the quality to break down low blocks, and also has a goal threat as well, is able to shoot off either foot, can shoot from distance as well. So yeah, I definitely say Desiree Doué is someone that you guys should keep an eye out on and invest your stocks in for 2025. So yeah, who's your next player?
My second one, you know, not very common to hear goalkeepers mentioned, but gotta go for a goalkeeper, you know. I'm going for Roma's very own Mile Svila.
Okay.
So, I don't know. Svila's an interesting one, because I don't know how many people will have been remember. Actually, I think you would remember. He was if you remember a few years ago, Man United versus Benfica. It was a huge goalkeeper error.
Oh,
he was the Benfica goalkeeper.
Oh yeah, that was him.
Yeah, it was him.
Damn, so he's on a redemption thing now.
Yeah, I can't lie. Very good. Very good. So last season, one of my friends, shout out Kat, one of my friends put me onto him. And I was tuning in. I was like, all right, let me see what's really going on in it. He's good, man. Really improved. He reminds me a little bit of Alisson in the sense of the, you know, when you know those ridiculous shots that are hit with so much power, and it feels like, you know, that's destined for the top corner.
Yeah, and
he just gets there.
Yeah,
that's really sort of the way where I feel about him. Like, he really sort of makes those those real diving saves, but it's not just like a camera thing. Like it's really like, the claims are there, the sweeping is there. He commands the area, like, and he always does this thing which Alisson's done for years with Liverpool with when their team, well, Roma, especially last season, were quite bad. And when their team is sort of under a lot of pressure or under a lot of duress, he sort of allows you to relieve that pressure by making saves continually. So you've seen, I think last season, Europa League quarter or semi-final, one of them, against Leverkusen, had an amazing performance. I think it was against Brighton, either this season or last season, amazing performance as well. And it's the same sort of, the team's really getting peppered, the goals, getting a lot of shots, like people are getting a lot of shots off at them, but repeatedly being able to make those saves and, keep your team in it and then let your team go up the other end and attack. I feel like that's really a underrated trait in keepers that, only the best really do have. And I feel like he has that trait. Also, to mention his distribution, I wouldn't say it's amazing, like it's not world class or anything, but I think it's definitely really good. And I think it's, just an extra on top of everything else to make him sort of that modern goalkeeper.
Yeah.
Someone I'd love to see at City soon. And in general, I think he's a great goalkeeper. I can't lie. I think any team that's sort of looking for a keeper, I think he's about 23 or 22. Like any keeper that's looking for a keeper who's ready but still can give you a lot of years.
Yeah.
And a lot of upside. I think he's the type of keeper to look into. So yeah, I'd definitely say him.
Fair enough. For my next player, I've gone with Bilal El Khanous at Leicester. I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with him, but I think 2025 could really be his year. Especially, I think Leicester are probably going to go down, and I don't think he's going to be playing in the Championship next season. I think he's going to get a move somewhere. I think a Premier League club would be very smart to make that signing when/if Leicester get relegated. And yeah, I just think from what I've seen of him when I've watched Leicester games, he's always been their kind of bright spot, their creative spot. I think the game against City most recently really stands out for me. He was completely running that game at times. I think Leicester were quite good in that game. Obviously, I think they lost 3-0 at the end, right? But I think for large parts of that game they were competitive, and I think a lot of that was due to El Khanous kind of pulling the strings in midfield. This is someone who has a really nice way of pass and really good vision and eye for a through ball and timing of his pass as well. And I think as a playmaker, someone that's really valuable again for breaking down low blocks and stuff. I think in terms of in tight spaces, dribbling, wriggling out of pressure, he's someone who's really thrives in that as well. And I just think that he's someone that if you put him around better pieces and better players, he's due to bang for me. So yeah, I would say Bilal Khanous, definitely invest your stocks in for this year. And then who's your last player?
My last player, bring it back to somewhat Man City again. Sergio Gomez. So obviously you'll know from last season how I feel about Sergio Gomez. I thought he was never really given the true opportunity to shine. If you look at him this season so far for Sociedad, he's been going crazy. He started off playing 8, played a few 10 games, played right wing, left wing, played a few left back as well. He's been amazing, man. I can't lie. He's getting assists. He's got returns. Like he
was good for Spain at the Olympics as well.
Amazing, bro. Yeah. This is what I'm saying, man. He was never really given the true opportunity. But this season for them, he's really impressed in my opinion. And he's sort of, I wouldn't say leading, but in terms of creativity, he's one of the best creators in La Liga at the moment. You know what I'm saying? He's creating chances, and it's not just like sideways passes. Like these are exquisite crosses he's putting on the plate. Do you know what I mean? And in a team with a few seasons ago, a lot of teams were looking at Take Kubo from Sociedad.
Yeah.
If you're watching Sociedad, like he's the guy who's really taking the team. Do you know what I mean? He's the one that's really sort of the attacking force, I'd say, for them. And I can't lie. I think 2025 will just be even better for him. I think a few months ago he got his first call up to the Spain men's national team. He's really sort of thriving, I guess, and I really just want to see more and more from him. Honestly, like I think 2035 for Sergio Gomez. Man, that's my guy, man. I'm proud, man. I'm proud to see, because the talent was there, the quality was there, but I don't think he ever really got given the chance to really show his talents like consistently. And I feel like now in a situation where he's getting a bit more of that responsibility, he's really sort of delivering. So yeah, 2025, I would not be surprised at all if he's getting a move in summer. You know what I mean? If other
Yeah.
teams are looking at, they need a creator, they need an 8, they need a 10. Can't lie, man, he's the guy. And
Someone that can fill in at left back as well.
for sure, like left wing back. Hey, I'm just saying, if there's any free at the back teams,
Amarim.
but yeah, definitely, and it's good to see him. He was obviously when he was younger hailed as kind of a wonder kid and sort of mellowed out a bit. It's good to see those players who were given that sort of great tag and then come down a little bit and then sort of hit where they need to be.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So,
it just shows that development isn't linear. Do you know what I mean?
For sure.
But that's all that we have time for this week. Thank you guys so much for listening. And until next week, we're out.